Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Micro Center info session hosted by Chambliss Center for Children and Chattanooga 2.0. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I will start by saying that we're recording this info session so that we can share it broadly for interested businesses later on. So my name is Jennifer Andrews. I'm the Director of Early Childhood Strategies for Chattanooga 2.0, and I am joined here by my colleague, Katie, who I will let introduce herself.
Hey everybody, I'm Katie Harbison. I'm President CEO of the Chambliss Center for Children, and I serve as the co-chairman of the Early Matters Action Team, which is part of the Chattanooga 2.0 group. As a volunteer position, I should say. I'm not paid by Chattanooga 2.0. My side volunteer gig is helping Jennifer.
And I am ever so thankful for it. So you all are here today to learn a little bit about the Micro Center model, which was started by Chambliss Center for Children. And I'm going to level set us here with a little bit about who Early Matters is, what Chattanooga 2.0 is. So we are a birth to career collaborative in Hamilton County, working to improve access to quality education and career opportunities for Hamilton County Chattanooga residents. And I have the joy of working in the early childhood space. And so there's the K-12 system, which I think more people are familiar with. The school system is largely the convener of that, and there is no one coordinator of the early childhood system. So Early Matters brings all of these organizations together to coordinate and align. And last year, 1 year ago, we released a plan to improve early childhood outcomes and access to quality programs and services for children, which also impacts working families. Throughout the planning of this process, we heard from parents about the lack of access to childcare, quality childcare, and affordability of childcare. It's largely unaffordable. We heard from childcare teachers about the standard for low wages, and we heard from businesses about the pain points being experienced recruiting working families. I think many of you will have been to the United for Working Families event hosted by United Way back in August. And that was a kickoff to a larger campaign about supporting working families. Childcare benefits is one of those things that we are trying to tackle. So why is childcare important? I think most of you all also probably know this, but economic research suggests that for every dollar spent on early childhood education, the return on investment ranges from $4 to $13, which is pretty huge. And this also leads to increased graduation rates and increased earnings into adulthood. But you all are here today to learn about how this impacts your bottom line. So childcare is a two-generational support for children under 6, the clients of childcare. Childcare provides safe, healthy, and supportive environments for kids, a consistent adult environment. It helps them to develop soft skills, including, ones that are most coveted by businesses in the workforce. Things like social emotional control, not having an outburst when your boss tells you something that you don't like, being patient, collaboration, all of that begins to be developed in early childhood. And it helps them also excel in kindergarten. If they're more kindergarten ready, they're more likely to be proficient in 3rd grade reading and math, and on and on. It helps with high school graduation and the future workforce. For the working family whose child has access to quality, reliable childcare, the employees have a better balance of their work and home responsibilities. They experience less anxiety and higher productivity in the workplace. Employers who are providing a childcare benefit or stipend or support of some kind, their employees express greater loyalty to their employer. It's a talent and recruitment and retention strategy for that point, and it leads to an improved economy. So some other fast facts for you in case you needed convincing as to why you should support childcare for your employees. So in a national study of human resources, and we got this information from the Best Place for Working Parents, that 83% of women and 81% of men reported childcare benefits would be an important factor in deciding whether to stay for their current employer. Let me go ahead and hide the floating controls. There we go. Businesses, business childcare supports have proven ROI to a business's bottom line, and you can see some of that there. We'll send out the recording afterward if you want to go back over any of these statistics. And then employers experience the benefit of a more productive and loyal workforce. 88% reported childcare benefits helped boost their productivity. So, childcare has been in the news, the national news a lot lately. What is the problem with childcare? In Hamilton County specifically, it's the fact that there isn't enough childcare. We're more fortunate than our more rural county neighbors, but we still have a shortage of childcare seats. You can see the orange here is where there is a scarcity of seats, so pretty much pervasive throughout the county. Childcare is also expensive. So the average cost of infant care for a child in Tennessee is $11,068 a year, which is about the same as four-year college tuition. That is 17% of the median household income of Chattanooga Hamilton County family. That's for one child. If you have two children under the age of 5, childcare equates to 41% of the median household income for Chattanoogans. And then just to draw a point around the fact that nearly half of children under the age of 6 in Tennessee live in families with incomes of less than $60,000. So childcare is a large, takes up a large percentage of that. In Hamilton County, there are 16,548 kids under the age of 6 with all parents in the workforce. That's 69% of young kiddos have parents, all available parents working. So those working parents need access to quality, reliable childcare. And last year in 2022, in Hamilton County alone, we saw an economic impact due to the childcare shortage of $94.4 million. We went to a conference with United Way in the spring that talked to where Waste Management was a national organization, talked about the $20,000 it takes to recruit and train new hires and about how retention efforts are worth it. $20,000 is also to annual childcare tuitions. The childcare business model is hard, so personnel is the largest expense for childcare programs, as you can see on the bottom there, due to ratio requirements. So whereas in K-12 you can have one teacher for 20-something children, you can only have one adult per 4 young babies. So ratio is what ends up driving up the cost of childcare. So it is not generally a profitable business to get into, as Katie can attest in a second. So there was a survey done in September across the state. $23,780 is the annual average salary for childcare teachers in the entire state, which is why there is a childcare teacher shortage across the state. Pretty soon there will be a higher, more than double minimum starting wage for a pre-K teacher or kindergarten teacher in Tennessee. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katie Harbison with Chambliss Center for Children to talk to us about how microcenters could be a solution for you to support your working families.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about something we've been doing for about 20 years. And it's something that we think could also be spread a little bit further. Right now, what we're doing is we're operating microcenters inside of Hamilton County schools. And we operate 12 different microcenters, and we think that this could be useful, not just to businesses, but also be utilized to help solve some of those problems that Jennifer just talked about. So basically what a micro center is a small child care classroom. It's usually one classroom, and it is located inside of some other building or business. It could be in an office building, it could be in a church, a community center. Really right now we do it inside of Hamilton County schools, but it could be anywhere. And it gets licensed by Chambliss Center for Children, and we license it through Department of Human Services through the state, just like we license other childcare programs. But there is a special license that allows us to do that. Jennifer, are you able to give me the ability to advance slides, or you want to do them for me?
Whichever. I can just click through them if you want.
Okay, we can go ahead. So as I said, single classroom. It's typically another childcare program like us. We don't have to be the ones to do it, but we're the ones that have been doing it in Hamilton County for a long time, that is running the childcare program inside of a host site. The business owner or the host site is contributing the space, which is what I'll get to in a minute. That helps a lot with the overhead. But the host site donates the space and all the utilities so that there is a way to kind of bring down some of those occupancy costs. Additionally, the host or business, whoever's hosting it, could even provide stipends to their employees so that we can raise the wages of those who are working in the childcare programs, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Right now, we are the hub, the Micro Center hub that's in Tennessee, here in Chattanooga, and we do Hamilton County schools. So what that looks like for us right now is that we operate a childcare classroom for children 0 to 5 years old. It's mixed age group, so you're going to have, you know, a baby in there, and you could have a 4-year-old, but it's meant to function like somebody who's taking care of children in their home. And that's where the licensing part of it comes in. But it allows us to take care inside of a Hamilton County school, to take care of the children of teachers so that they can literally bring their 1-year-old, drop their child off, and then walk down the hallway to their classroom where they can teach. And convenience, of course, is a huge benefit, but it also allows that parent to have the ability to go check on their sick child, to go nurse, or to go, you know, there's so many things, so many options having your child right down the hallway for you. So we've been able to do that for quite some time, and it's been very successful. Next slide. So we are well positioned, or uniquely positioned, I should say, in Tennessee to be able to do this because we have the ability to license a program like this with our state. There are lots of states that I talk to that really want to do this, but their licensing regulations don't allow for it. So if there's anybody watching this that's outside of Tennessee, you might need to check with your licensing entities. But Tennessee does allow for a small child care program, in the sense of Micro Center, for up to 12 children, and it doesn't have to be in a residential setting. So some states require that it's in somebody's home, but in our case here in Tennessee, that does not have to be. So that's why we call it a Micro Center. It's not a home-based program. It's not a full-fledged child care program. It's kind of in between those. It's just 12 children, up to 12 children in a one-room setting, and doing that in a mixed age group. And there are a lot of different tools we can use automation-wise, software-wise, that really help us to be able to do this and to monitor and to keep everything simple and easy for those utilizing the program as well. Next slide. So you remember seeing this chart a minute ago that Jennifer showed you, and really talking about the cost of childcare and why it's so expensive. And we can't cut out the obviously the people, the salary cost of childcare. But what a Micro Center model can do is really cut out those occupancy and some of those office and administration costs. So if we have a host site that's offering a space in their building without rent, you can understand how occupancy costs go down. The other thing that we ask of host sites is that they're providing things like janitorial and electrical and water and all the things that they would typically be paying for that space anyway, because they own the space, it's in their building. We would be asking for all of those costs to be included as well, so that we really cut down on that overhead cost. And that's really the only way we can either increase salaries. You saw how low childcare program salaries are. So it's the only way to either increase salaries for our staff, which leads to better recruitment and longevity with the childcare program, or I should say, and it's also the way we can decrease cost to parents. And that's why you saw the cost of providing childcare is so expensive. It's not because the childcare workers are getting rich and making a lot of money. It's because the cost is so high to provide care, and we can't pass all that cost on to the families. It just becomes unaffordable. So the way to get affordable childcare, and also to get childcare where people can afford to work in it, is to really do something like this Micro Center model, where you cut out some of the expense. Next slide. So this is typically the way an organizational structure would look for a childcare program. So Chambliss Center for Children, we operate childcare center here at our main campus. We also have them across the city. And this is what the centers look like. This is where we have a director of a site. We have an assistant director in some cases, depending on the size of the childcare program. And then classrooms have lead teachers and then assistant teachers. And then we have all these floaters that kind of fill in, which is what you have to do when you're serving lots of children. But next slide, we alter that a little bit when we're looking at micro centers. So the micro centers have kind of the organization at the top, a Chambliss Center or other hub. And then we have a director of our micro centers who's kind of mobile. And so she oversees all of these sites. At each micro center site, so each of these colors is a separate site. At the blue site, you see there's a lead teacher there, and then she has teachers who work under her. That could be a church, business, community center, medical center, as you can see here. But each site is not having to pay for a director. Each site isn't having to pay for somebody to do finances and payroll and all those things, which is what really makes this much more affordable with kind of this different business model. Next slide. So what are some of the benefits of micro centers? Obviously, it's much easier to launch than a full-scale center when you're thinking about, gosh, does my business want to open a childcare program, a center? That's taking on a lot, not just in space, but in people. And it's a lot. Trust me, I've opened childcare programs and we run childcare programs, and I know it's daunting. So for somebody who's not in childcare to think about opening a full-scale center is quite a bit. But you think about a micro center, if you only need 3 staff members, it becomes much more doable and much easier to launch. It's also much easier just in terms of the space. You're really just looking for enough space for 12 children instead of 100 children or 50 children. And so it's much more doable for a business. It's also a more sustainable financial model because, as I mentioned earlier, you have the lower overhead costs and you're sharing the cost of the director with other micro centers. It's also a real benefit to families when they can enroll their children in a micro center that is close to either where they work or where they live. And that's really where people, or how people choose where they want or where they need childcare is work or home. And having it at a business where you work or at a business close by is a huge benefit. We also see this as a way of helping solve some of these childcare shortages that Jennifer talked about. So looking in rural places, childcare deserts, we really see this as a way to kind of check lots of boxes, help employers recruit and retain employees, but also to help kind of solve this childcare desert or this childcare shortage we have in Hamilton County. And then having the mixed age group is a really neat model, and it really does help create this continuum of care, because once your child's in the program, you know that they will have a space until they go to kindergarten. So you're not constantly wondering, is my 4-year-old going to have a place? Are they not? So it really does have a lot of benefits. And then this is a video. This is going to be interviews with some folks about our Hamilton County Schools micro centers that I'll let you watch.
The on-site child care center is a daycare center provided for the employees of a particular site. Fortunately for Hamilton County Schools, that would be a daycare center within the school for the employees. We have very limited turnover for those teachers who use the site. We have very limited turnover because they are not having to stay at home with their children, and they're able to bring them to school as well as to interact with them throughout the day.
To be honest, I have stayed at my school because of on-site childcare. I couldn't imagine having to add in another place that I would drive every morning for a commute. It's not only convenient, but it's also wonderful to know that my children are in the building with people that I know and see every day and have a strong relationship with. And you can't really measure all of the benefits that has to someone working in the same building.
The on-site childcare is truly a benefit and a recruitment tool for our school.
Having on-site childcare is it's unmeasurable in how much it benefits my family, having my kids with me every day, knowing they're just down the hall with people that I see every day and build a relationship with. It makes a difference between my wanting and being able to show up for work every day.
So that just kind of gives you an idea of, you know, how it's worked in the schools and how successful it's been and why we're wanting to expand into businesses. So what's happening now and why are we working on this now is that we have actually received, or I should say, we know we will be receiving. So we're in the very early stages of this. We really just wanted to get this information out there and see what kind of interest we have and let some people kind of get in on the ground floor of this. But we have received or will receive a grant from DHS that's going to help us fund opening 15 new micro centers. That's 5 per year for 3 years. We're going to be looking in childcare deserts, but we will, of course, you know, be looking broadly if we don't have a lot of options in deserts. And we're going to be really looking at businesses that might want to help with their recruitment or retention, or maybe they have families that are pregnant. We hear this a lot in the schools that principals call us and say, I've got 5 teachers pregnant and I don't think they're going to come back, but if I can get a childcare program here, maybe they will. So helping families see the benefit to staying in the workforce and not being forced to stay home. Sometimes there is no choice for moms that want to go back to work because they don't have childcare, as we talked about earlier. Just the supply is so limited. We also want to be able to pay quality childcare teachers a livable wage because we want them to continue to stay in the workforce and continue to do the great work that they're doing with children. And this is one way we can do that. And then right now, we also have a great opportunity because DHS also currently funds what they call establishment grants. And they help with things like all the furniture you need, all the toys, all the consumables, the arts and, you know, the construction paper and the glue. We can write a grant that basically will get all of that covered so that the cost of opening the room is really just in whatever the cost is to outfit that room so that it works for childcare. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now that makes this a really easy way to start offering a childcare benefit. Next slide. So micro center hosts, these are some of the roles or the responsibilities. Basically what we would be looking for is somebody that is not going to be charging rent. And I tell people this a lot when they come talk to me about opening childcare. Childcare is not going to make you any money. So if y'all are looking to open a childcare program to make money, you probably don't want to do that. So we would not be looking to be paying rent in any or leasing space of any kind. So we would need a $0 space usage agreement. We also would need a site that would be able to cover their utilities, janitorial costs, everything that you would be paying for that room otherwise, whether it's pest control or water and heating and air, all those sorts of things. And then we would not have the funds to renovate that room. So if there's a space that needs a small restroom put in, or it needs something, it needs a door or window or cabinets, that would also need to be covered by the host site. Because at the end of the day, the space is owned by the host. And so we would not be able to use state money to do any sort of capital improvements or any expenditures that's adjusting or working on the space that's owned by the host. And then we also would need a micro center host who are willing to help publicize the program, to not only help us with enrollment, but also into publicizing for enrollment, but also publicizing or getting the word out about potentially needing childcare workers. And I'll just say in our schools, this works really well because what we've been able to do is recruit a lot of parents who have children that go to school, and the schedule works so well for them because they can then work in the childcare program at the school while they have dropped their own school-age children off in the school. So it's partnerships like that that really make the program work. Next slide. So what does a micro center hub do? So in our case, what we would do is really talk to the host site and make sure we're structuring this on a business side, a financial side, to make sure it's going to succeed. We've got to make sure we're going to pay teachers enough that they're going to stay, or that they'll even come to work for us, I should say. We're going to need to pay them a living wage. And so we want to talk about that. We would want to talk about what are the hours needed? If for your specific business, sometimes, you know, we're 24/7 here at our main campus. We probably don't want to start off with a 24/7 micro center, but we could be looking at extended hours if needed. And then we want to make sure we're structuring it with a tuition to the parents that's affordable to them too. And so that we would want to work with the host site to make sure everybody was pleased with how that was all set up. We would do all the hiring of the employees, their training, management of them. We would also take care of any of the enrollment of children, collecting tuition from parents, basically all of the business and administrative side of it, all the payroll, all the HR stuff. We also take care of all the licensing and compliance. So childcare licensing is not easy. The book is hundreds of pages long. If you've ever read it, I commend you. If you haven't, please don't even try. It's confusing. But basically there's a lot of rules in childcare, which there should be. And so we would take care of making sure the center was meeting all those requirements. And then we carry the liability insurance for this. So this is one thing that the school system required. And the reason they actually couldn't do childcare themselves is that the school system cannot carry liability insurance, cannot insure a child under the age of 3. And so Chambliss Center actually insures all of those classrooms to protect the school against liability. Next slide. So if you're thinking, you know, is this something we want to do? Here are just a few of the things to think about in terms of space for young children. It's much more restrictive than space for K-12 or even K-5 children, because children in kindergarten and above, they can all walk. They can probably all run. And unfortunately, in a childcare program, you're going to have babies that are non-ambulatory. So we've got a lot stricter restrictions on things for fire safety. So we do have to be on a ground floor. But the caveat to that is, if it's not ground floor, but the access to the room can be accessed by a ramp, then that sometimes can be acceptable, because we've got to be able to get out of the building in a fire without children having to go up or down stairs, because we actually roll children in cribs. The children who don't walk, we would throw them all in a fire bed, which is a crib with big wheels on it, and roll them down a ramp. So that's one of the biggies. We've got to have enough space so that there's 30 square feet of usable space per child. So if you multiply that by 12, you'll get, you know, some number. And but the thing is, you can't count space that's under a crib, that's under a table, that's under a shelf. So usable space is the key word there. Jennifer, will you keep clicking through this? Thank you. We've also got to have some outdoor space. It would be great if it was grassy. It doesn't have to be grassy, but it's got to be soft so that if children fall, they're not going to be hurting themselves. But we do have to have at least 50 square feet of usable play space per child. Again, not space that's usable has to be outside. It can't be under a sandbox or under a picnic table or anything like that. So it's got to be usable space. We do have to have the ability to have a child-sized toilet and sink in the classroom. And that's really because children who are potty training or children who are old enough to use the bathroom themselves, we can't let them leave by themselves and go out into a hallway and down the hall to use the restroom. And if we send a teacher outside, then we are now out of ratio. So we've got to be able to have some sort of child-sized toilet and sink in the classroom. And again, that's something that you probably don't already have, but that's something we could certainly talk about. It can be done to add those into classrooms, because we've seen it happen a lot. And then we do need an adult-sized sink, because we have requirements around food safety and diapering and hand washing and all of those too. And then we have to have 2 ways for children or staff to exit within 75 feet of the classroom. This is also fire. So if there's a fire on one side of the room or a fire down one hallway, we've got a way to get the children out. You can go next. So staffing is also kind of tricky in here, and because it's very minimal, we have to be very careful not to overstaff so that we don't run costs up, but we don't want to understaff so that the staff are not meeting the required ratios. So there do have to be 2 staff if you've got children under 2. One of those would be specifically for the children under 2, and one of those would be for the children over 2. And then once you get into 10 or more children, you start getting into 3 staff, and it really depends on the hours you're open and the number of children you have and the number or the ages of those children. But this is kind of just a rough idea, just so you have some kind of idea of how many people would be in there. But typically you might have 3 staff and 1 part-timer who covers the middle of the day, or maybe the middle of the day and stays to the end of the day, depending on what those schedules are. And again, that's something we would work out, but just wanted to give y'all an idea of how that would be. So, all right, so how can a business, if you're thinking about this, make the most of a micro center? So one of the things that we think will be helpful is to maybe survey your employees. And maybe you've already done this and you've already heard that it's an issue and you don't need to do this. But if you haven't, it might be good to survey employees and ask them about on-site childcare. Would they use it? Would they use it if it was partially subsidized, meaning you as an employer or a business put some money in so that you're subsidizing the cost of it and that your employees aren't having to pay as much? Or even saying, how likely are you to stay with this company if we offered that? So that's one option for a next step. The other thing you could do is really to commit to supporting childcare teachers in your micro center. So those are the teachers who are going to be working in the site, even though they're Chambliss Center employees. We think that there are some ways that a host site or an employer could actually help boost their salary. One of those is by maybe even subsidizing, like I said, the childcare tuition that your parents are paying, so that they're paying an affordable rate, but there's enough money coming in to actually pay that teacher a livable wage. And then, of course, open communication between us, the hub director, and the host site is also going to be really key. Next slide. So there is an interest form, and I think, Jennifer, are you putting that in the chat? I think Jennifer's going to put in the chat. There's going to be a link to an interest form that you can fill out. So if you think this is something, you're not committing to anything, because as I said, we're very early on in this process. We aren't exactly sure of the timeline of when the DHS grant the money will actually be coming in, but as soon as that happens, we're going to be hiring and really getting this rolling. But so you're not signing up to anything official, but sign up on the interest form. It'll help us get an idea of who's out there, who might be interested in a micro center. Are they, businesses? Are they hospitals, community centers? Jennifer just put it in the chat, and it'll really help us to decide kind of how we're going to start and where we're going to go. We are, as I said earlier, looking at opening 5 a year for 3 years. And so what we will end up doing is kind of prioritizing, phase 1 would be year 1 and phase 2 and phase 3. So the more info you can give us to help us decide strategically where we're going to start and where we can go with these centers would be great. I can't guarantee that everybody will end up getting one, because I'm not sure what the interest will be, but we definitely want to know who might be interested. And I guess with that, we will open it up for questions. Y'all can either type them in the chat or just come off mute, and Jennifer and I will try to answer them. Oh, Jennifer also put in the chat, there's an FAQs that we made up for anybody thinking about micro centers. Just, what about this? What about that? We knew there'd be a lot of questions. And you can certainly click on the FAQs, or you can ask now and we can answer them in person. So either y'all are overwhelmed with all the information we just gave, or you're crystal clear. Hopefully it's crystal clear.
I'll just open it up by saying, I don't know that we've got anywhere currently that would have sufficient space. But this is definitely something that I'll bring back to the rest of the team to evaluate and review. This is excellent stuff. So thank you for sharing all of it.
Yay. Thanks, Jesse. Who are you with, Jesse, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure, I'm with Northside Neighborhood House.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to go ahead and get this out there is that we know that, you know, we're not ready to open these micro centers tomorrow. And I don't think any of y'all would be either. So we wanted to go ahead and get this out so that we know if you're thinking about it, you can start thinking about it space wise or just logistically wise. How would this work in your building or in space that you own? Or maybe it's not your building. Maybe it's the next door business that you know has a whole bunch of space because they now have workers who are working from home and they're not sure what to do with all the vacant office space. I mean, you know, think outside the box here. And we can certainly come and look at space and we can go, yeah, that's not going to work. Or, you know, with a few tweaks, it could work. So it's something just to start planting the seed to thinking about where could an option be for a micro center. The
Hey,
timeline for the first phase, I'm sorry, let me answer this question in the chat, and then I'll get to you, Wesley. We're not sure exactly of the timeline because we're waiting on DHS to give us the timeline for months for funds to come in. So I anticipate that, you know, phase one, meaning first 5 centers, would open sometime in 2024. I think we will be soon coming on the funding, and then we'll need to do the hiring on our end and get geared up and organized, and then we'll, as soon as we can, start really looking to opening those sites. Wesley?
yeah, thanks, Katie. And my apologies if you've answered this already. So my role with United Way is Director of Corporate Engagement. So as I'm thinking of potential businesses that this could be a fit for and bringing them into this conversation, phase one, do you have a specific market that you're trying, area? I know you mentioned childcare deserts, right? But service area that you would be aiming for?
No, not specifically at this point. One of the things we're trying to do is kind of gauge the interest to see, you know, is there broad interest? Are we going to have our choice of any zip code? You know, if so, then we are going to be really looking at childcare deserts. And the DHS grant, just to be honest, it mentioned childcare deserts. But as you saw from Jennifer's map in the very beginning of the presentation, almost everywhere in Hamilton County is a childcare desert at this point. So there would need to be some conversation with me and DHS, just making sure we're clear about where they're defining deserts, where we're defining deserts. But I think we have a really good argument to say pretty much anywhere. But we really wouldn't want to put a micro center in a place that has a huge childcare presence already in that area, because parents already have options. So we would definitely want to be looking at places that, you know, maybe don't have 20 childcare programs around them to be serving families, or maybe it's meeting a need that for some reason the other childcare programs can't meet, whether that be a time of day or something else. We'd certainly want to talk to you or any potential host site about what need we could be meeting in that area. Jennifer, can you pull that map back up of the childcare deserts?
Yes.
It's basically the whole county, but there's a few blue spots, a few blue spots around, but some of that might actually have changed since that map too, just because we have had a pretty large closure of a childcare program in downtown with Siskin closing. So that would probably change the.
That's right, Katie. And this is also from 2020, maybe 2019, 2020. So I think this doesn't adequately show the impact of the pandemic on childcare closures. And the other thing to note about this is just because there is it makes it look like there's an adequate childcare supply in downtown, in the Red Bank area there. That's because everyone who's coming from outside of the county into downtown to work is enrolling their children there. So it's not like there's a bunch of open seats. So I think that there is far fewer childcare seats in the rural areas, but there is still a need in the downtown area too because of the workforce.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we can make an argument. So I would say we're not eliminating any location at this point.
So I know you said that the point of this is not to make a profit, but would it be possible for the host site to make any amount of profit from this?
No, I don't think there's any way for the host site to make a profit without charging the childcare program to be there. And once that happens, then the financial model falls apart. So there's really no way for a business to make money doing childcare in general. But in this micro center model, no, the host site would actually be investing, you know, at least in-kind space and utilities and things like that. So I don't see, unless you see something different, Jennifer, I don't see a way for a host site to make money.
No, just because the revenue made by childcare is by the parents. So I mean, you could, but then you would be relying on your employees to make up the difference in that pay.
And we see this more as a way for an employer to offer a benefit to the community and to their employees, rather than as a way for an employer to create a benefit for themselves. So it's something where, you know, there might even be an instance where the employer is paying money so that their employees can have a reduced rate. So, you know, I think that's kind of the model that we're looking at.
Any other questions for Katie?
Or Jennifer?
Okay, well, thank you all so much for taking the time this afternoon. We're going to send out this recording for people who want to learn a little bit more about micro centers. Feel free to contact Katie and I. Our email addresses are in the slides that we're going to pull up that we emailed to everyone. So thank you and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.